2024 Carson City Library Board Meeting. May we please have call to order
Chair Nichols,
here?
Vice Chair Olivas,
Present.
Trustee Case,
Present.
Trustee Lucas,
Present.
Trustee Markle.
Present.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. Item number 2, public comment. Members of the public who wish to address the Library Board of Trustees may come forward and speak on any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Library Board. And hello, good evening. Thank you for being here.
I'm sorry I've missed others, but I am trying to do my due diligence. But I've got to say, first off, thank you all for being here because that's above and beyond most human beings want to be. So thank you for your interest and your involvement. I'd also like to thank staff and Joy for providing me a place to do my studies. Not only stay cool, but that they're patient and they're very knowledgeable, and so I appreciate that very much. I do want to bring up 2 items that have been brought up several times, and I don't know where they are on your list to to-dos. And the restrooms, I understand that because of the facility's age and its design, adding an extra toilet for family-type utilization and stuff is just not in the book, in line for finances. Well, I'd like to take some of the money they're planning to use on Centennial Park, but that's a whole nother soapbox. I'll stay off of that one. But I would love to see some way of encouraging generation towards some an add-on or such. I know that limited space there and such would require some real thoughtful consideration. But also the lighting. It was brought up by the young man with those adorable kids that he brings. And it still hasn't really been addressed to his comfort, and he's not asked me to come. I'm not speaking for him. I speak for myself. I think that there could be more lighting out there. I love the fact that we are a night sky city, and we consider that, but I think there are ways that we could get the corner areas and the area between Smith's and the front area set up differently, but that's all into the designs. And so that's my bits, but again, thank you so much. I mean, it really... Joy just brought me the whole packet. That's really cool. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you for bringing that to our attention. And if it was up to us and we had the money and we own the building and everything, we would get that fixed right away. So we'll continue to work with the city and continue. Good. We thank you. Is that it for public comments? Okay, item number 3 for possible action, approval of minutes of previous meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look out there? Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Everyone say aye.
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 Alrighty. Motion so moved. Item number 4 for possible action, Library Board of Trustee business. Discussion and possible action regarding the election of chair and vice chair of the Library Board of Trustees for the 2025.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I had to step out. The security system from the library is calling me, so I'm going to step out while you guys.
Okay. For the fiscal year, for Mr. French out there, at the beginning of every fiscal year, we have to have an election for our chair and our vice chair.
You didn't do that?
Not at the last one, no. At the July, no, there's only 3 of us.
Oh, but did it happen in June?
We did because we lost the chair and we had to have a chair, so we have to do it again. So, here we go. Do I have a nomination for chair or vice chair?
This is Trustee Markle. I nominate Trustee Nichols to be chair.
I second that nomination.
How about vice? Do we want to do this separately or do it together?
Probably separately.
Separately? Okay. Then all in favor?
Aye.
You accept?
Oh, I'm sorry. I do, I guess, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't go running screaming out. I thought about it. I thought about it. But, sorry. Yes, okay. Do I have nomination for a vice chair?
Before we start the nominations, I just want to say I've loved being vice chair as I have for now, but I will have a lot of duties with family and team sports with the high school and the middle school where I may miss a few meetings. So I would appreciate if somebody else would kind of step up and take the vice chair role.
This is Trustee Markle. I'd like to nominate Trustee Lucas. You got to get in there fast.
I guess you do.
Somebody second it?
Well, I want her to accept before we,
I'll do vice chair.
okay.
I'll be back up.
Someone second this?
I'll second the nomination.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I vote on this?
Motion carries. Okay. And welcome back.
Can we take a pause off record for a moment?
Yes, we can. I was just going to ask, do we have staff there? It would be my recommendation then that, and the power's still down, correct? Yeah, it would be my recommendation to send them home then. Okay, and do we have any kind of signage or anything outside? So if somebody pulls up, or how are we going to handle that? Okay. Okay, so yeah. Okay, yeah.
Because there's no
exactly.
electricity.
Right, so if that's the first thing we could do, I would get that done. Okay. Correct, and it's 90-something degrees and it's smoky outside. Okay, so we are going to take a few-minute intermission to let her do that, because actually, that's because her report is the next thing and the last thing, so we can't skip it.
What time would you like to reconvene the meeting?
How about 5:45?
Okay,
Can we do that?
yes.
Thank you. 5:45, so we'll reconvene. So we are on agenda item number 5, information only, library director administrative reports. Now she's got something new to report.
Sorry, it's probably easier to hear me. You'll see where we are so far with fiscal 25. I will produce numbers for fiscal 24 once all of those numbers are wrapped up, and I feel certain that we're not going to see any fluctuation. Right now, we've still got, as recent as today, funds that are going to have to be applied towards fiscal 24. So those final numbers aren't in. I don't expect them to be a huge change, but there will be changes. On that note, we will also be going in front of the Board of Supervisors next week. One, to request a approval for spending beyond the $50,000 threshold with a single vendor for Baker and Taylor purchases, our book vendor. We asked for a $100,000 approval amount for 2024, our fiscal 24, but we went over by $11,000. So we're asking for ratification to our original request of that amount. That doesn't affect or impact the budget and the bottom line budget at all. It's just us following proper procedure, city procedure, as far as single vendor use. And then that same day, we'll also be asking for approval of $120,000 to spend with that same single vendor for fiscal 25. So just in case y'all hear anything about us being on the Board of Supervisors agenda next week, that's what it's about. Hopefully we'll stay on the consent, but you never know. So both DA and Niegas and I are hoping that we'll stay on consent. So that's where we're at right now with the gift fund. You can see we always start out in those lower numbers, and then when we do our augmentations that come through in November, you'll see the funds from the Friends donations being pulled forward. So you'll always see, I think you might remember from last year that we were operating sort of at a deficit in gift fund until that augmentation comes through. Because the funds are there, they don't get applied in our budget until those twice a year augmentation periods. Is there any questions about that?
Does anybody have any questions about the budget side of the report? I do.
Okay.
So I always love it when you buy books, but I'm just curious, why? Was there a reason why you went over? I mean, is there inflation or, price increase or?
Well, the reason we went over with that particular vendor is because we had more money to spend because of the Friends contribution towards covering our entire lease. So before the Friends paid for the adult lease of books, and in fiscal 24, they paid for the children's as well, or youth. And they also gave us a contribution toward large print. So all of those were purchased from Baker and Taylor, so that increased the overall amount that we spent with Baker and Taylor. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, because we're not
Okay.
talking about the actual budget, we're talking about the single amount spent with, or the total amount spent with a single vendor. So,
Right.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah.
understand that, but
Yeah, so this year I bumped it to 120. Now, we've never come near that. I intentionally set it at $100,000 because we have to set up a purchase order. So I was like, we're going to do one purchase order for Baker and Taylor the whole year. But then we went over it. This is sort of new territory for me because we've not ever done that before. But it was because my fault, 100%, didn't think about that we were going to have more funds. Ultimately, we were going to be spending more with Baker and Taylor because we had this increased contribution from the Friends towards items that would be coming from Baker and Taylor.
were you able to buy something you didn't think you'd be able to buy? I mean, was it kind of exciting? Oh, look, we can buy more books, or we can buy.
Well, we
What
were
we get?
able to buy more books and more large print. We were able to contribute and match a little. I wouldn't say match 100%, but match more of those funds that were provided from the Friends. So yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Mhm.
More large print, yay.
Mhm. Yeah, but just more books in general, you
Mhm.
know, and probably some more audiobooks and things like that, like actual playaways or CD audiobooks, because folks are still those still circulate a lot. I mean, the industry is going to take care of phasing those out for us, unfortunately, because they're just dialing back on even producing them. So the CDs, yeah, yeah, the tangible audiobook.
Yeah.
So that's why. But this year we'll have a much, and also our collection development supervisor left, and things just got, it was just a little hurly-burly there. But mostly it's because I didn't think about the amount that we might overspend beyond $100,000 because of having that sort of, it's kind of nebulous amount of money to spend because of the increased amount of money we got towards items that we purchased from the same vendor from the Friends.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so speaking of the Friends, there's such a beautiful picture of me and Phil there. So I'm just going to get started with the staffing updates first. Haley Wilson. Haley Wilson started with the library in April of 2020. And in the winter of 2021, she was promoted to a senior library assistant. She was then promoted to the collection development librarian in June. And then she just got promoted to our programming and outreach coordinator in July. So she's had quite a rise. She is a superstar. She's just starting a program getting her master's in library science from the University of Indiana this month. And she is been doing a large amount, probably 60 to 70% of our programming. So she does all of our story times, most of our youth outreach. So this is just such a perfect fit for her. It's a bummer that we have to now go out and look for collection development supervisor because she would have been great for that too. And that's going to be a much more difficult position to fill. But we couldn't pass up the opportunity to hire her for this programming job. So she is just full tilt boogie at this point in getting all kinds of things straightened out and in order and set up and ready to go. She was just at her first outreach this week at the Sheriff's Night Out. And we had nearly, I think she said 462 folks stop by our booth. And we allegedly had the best prizes of everyone there. I said that's probably because we didn't just give out logo swag. We gave out fun toys that were leftovers from summer readings kickoff party. We have a new library assistant named Joanna Rowley who started on July 14th. She comes to us from WNC, and she is also actively working on a master's in library science. She's about a year into her program. So Haley Swift, who was a senior library assistant, is resigned and is no longer with the library effective July 31st. So that leaves us with one library assistant position posted, 3 library assistant positions open, 2 are posted, 1 collection development supervisor position, and 1 unclassified. So we're operating at about 60% staff right now, which unfortunately, is not that new to us. This is not the first time we've been here. And so our staff has been doing great. Myself and the deputy, a lot of that extra time and on desk and extra hours falls on us, which as it should. We're the unclassified employees. So we make up the difference that way, but also our staff has just been incredibly flexible, and their schedules literally change minute to minute, and they are just getting so used to it that they're great at pivoting at this point. So we do have those positions posted. The library assistant is definitely getting the most action, the most applicants. However, the applicants aren't meeting qualifications. So I'm going to reach out to HR this week and see what we might need to do. and get some guidance from them. With the librarian position, we did include supplemental questions for that position, asking very specific questions about collection development experience so that folks would know that although this position is called librarian, what it really is a collection development supervisor, and the work is collection development. And if someone doesn't have experience doing that, this isn't the right fit for them. So that's kind of how you can, within the confines of the job description, let people know what the job really is going to entail specifically, since the job descriptions are intentionally broad. So we'll see how it goes. I'm hopeful.
Does Carson City, do they advertise outside of the area? I can't.
They do, because they use Indeed.com, and
Okay.
they use, I can't remember who else, but they're also on like the government jobs, national,
Okay.
because we get a lot of applicants from other places. They're just usually not folks who have enough experience, or not the right kind of experience. So, and we might need to adjust our approach as well, but at the same time, it's tricky because we want to find the right fit, because we have such a great vibe and sense of team, and so we just want to be really selective. But right now, we are not even having that option because we're just not getting folks that are even getting past the initial vetting process, and shouldn't actually. And also we get quite a few folks who are very clearly just kind of the jobs popping up on their, when you go and apply for a government job, and then it gives you emails saying, hey, this position became available, and people are just going in and firing off their application. And so we're getting applications that are like, their objective is they want to work for the sheriff's department. So this wasn't the job that they were originally filling that application out for, right? So, so we do get some of those. So we're just kind of staying the course, and but hopefully we are seeing an uptick in the library assistant positions, and that will be, if we can't fill any of them soon, the library assistant is the most important, because that's the position that's going to be most dedicated to the desk coverage. So we can kind of duck and dive and fill in everywhere else, but it's the desk where we need the most, that it's the most impactful when we're this short-staffed. So that said, we've got some stuff coming up. Last Saturday we had our Time to Escape room, which has actually been very popular. All of our time slots have been filled, and people have really enjoyed it. So Amanda Conkin is our team member who facilitated the program, and she put a lot of hard work into it, and she's loved it. We've got our Movies Through the Decades, Part 3. This is the last weekend. I had it on the tip of my brain what the movies were, and now I can't remember because everything flew out of my brain when the power went out. And then our Summer Reading Challenge wrap-up party. Now, this is going to be really fun, especially for all of those of us here who like to tie-dye, because we're going to be tie-dyeing again. And last time we did this as just a regular program during summer reading, and we had 60 people within the first hour, and we ran out of stuff within the first hour and a half. We ran out of dye. So we tripled our supplies, and we're hoping it's going to be a big turnout. We are behind on our minutes, but we're hoping that we can at least sort of come in, finish strong here at the end of the summer. So that's going to be weekend after next. So Saturday after next from 10 to 2. And we switched the times up a little bit. We were going from 12 to 4, and we decided to start at the time that we actually opened the library. Because last time there were people there who were waiting for the thing to start, but the library was open for 2 hours and before. So people thought, it's the minute the library opens, this program starts, and it didn't. So we're experimenting. We'll see how it goes. And then we're also having a teen back to school party on Friday, the first Friday of the new school year. So and it's going to have pizza. So we're hoping that's going to entice some kids to come out and kind of try out some of the changes we've made to the space over the summer. Yeah, as you can see there with our total minutes read, we have seen a bit of an increase in this. I couldn't give you exact numbers right now. At the time of this writing, which was a few days ago, we were at 518, and that was approximately 64% of our goal. So, we had a staff training day on Monday. The library was closed, and we did a hot wash of the summer reading challenge so far, because we know that we're not going to meet our minutes unless we just come in at the end with lots of people entering their numbers. It would be unlikely that we'll meet our goal. And so how can we do better? What could we have done better?
Can I just let you know that, and maybe I'm an idiot and I signed up for the wrong one, but I have Beanstalk,
Beanstalk, yeah.
and signed up for the summer reading challenge. And about a week ago, it gave me an alert and said the reading challenge is over.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you sign up for this summer reading
Yeah.
challenge?
And and I had been
Okay.
clocking my minutes.
Yeah.
And then I got, a little pop-up, and I think I was reading, and I got a little pop-up, and it was just like,
Really? And
yeah, it said it.
do you mind, if you have time, would you mind coming by the library and showing me what it's saying to
Yeah.
you? Because mine is still actively
Really?
going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I stopped clocking. I mean, I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I stopped clocking minutes. I thought,
Okay.
okay.
Well, that
okay.
would be, that would be really helpful to know, to see what it's saying to you, because mine is showing that my minutes are logged and everything's cool.
Yeah.
So if that's happening to you, it's probably happening to other people. But I can help get Beanstalk to help us, but if I don't know what it,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have to see it. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
could, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. And then last but certainly not least, the library received our annual donation from the Friends of the Carson City Library. This year, they were able to donate $55,000, which is going to continue to fund our reading programs and challenges, programming and outreach events, the digital and print collections expansion that is specifically overdrive and resource material and large print collection expansion, and then of course the Capital City Reads annual community reading event. And just without the Friends, we would not be able to do the high quality program that we're able to do right now. And we could do it, but it would take a lot more ingenuity, and they just allow us to really. Sometimes we think, okay, what's our stars in our eyes hope for this program? And often we're able to meet that aspiration because of the funding provided by the Friends. So they're very generous and very supportive. And also just recently let us go over and get some more books for the completion bags for the summer reading program. So thanks very much to them. And then per your request, Trustee Nichols, Chair Nichols, you'll see this last final report that is showing you the comparison of the different collections from July of last year compared to July of this year. So there's the actual numbers in a drop-down list, and then here's what it looks like on a graph, which I had to make it that small because I couldn't I couldn't get it to look right otherwise. Oh,
that's
what am I
fine.
doing? So, and you can see the numbers are they look a little bit strange here on the actual graph, but you can see the corresponding numbers at the top. So you can see where we've seen an uptick in some things and a decrease in others. And we're actually also working on getting much more granular with this, just for our own collection development, and going, okay, well, how are Westerns specifically circulating? And finding out ways to pull reports that get really very specific. But this just gives you an idea of how the different types of collections circulate. And when you see the Baker and Taylor, that's lease. That's how we distinguish between our lease items, so our leased fiction,
Okay.
and then our purchased
okay.
fiction. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
I think it's also a really great way to look at this and say, okay, is there an area that we can improve upon our programming or improve upon our outreach?
Yeah.
I-
And
'cause
we
I'm
do
looking
this
at-
all behind the scenes already. We look at these numbers, but it's good for you guys to see them too.
Yeah.
And we know and are devoting more time and funding to Spanish.
I was just gonna say, I'd really like to,
Yeah.
start thinking about more programming to the
Yeah.
Spanish community.
For sure. Programming and materials.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. Materials are hard because if we go to our traditional resources for Spanish speaking materials, a lot of that's going to be translations, or it's going to be writers who write originally in Spanish, but in many cases it's more literary fiction. Gabriel Garcia Marquez is from Colombia. He writes in Spanish. Does the average person in Latin America or other Spanish-speaking countries want to read Gabriel Garcia Marquez? No, they probably want to read the Spanish-speaking or Spanish-writing version of James Patterson. Not James Patterson, but like Mexico's answer to James Patterson. So we really then have to go out and try and find resources really within the community who can give us some guidance on what is really popular in those countries. What is the zeitgeist there? Because we may not necessarily have access to that using our typical resources. They're a little bit more, dare I say, highbrow, right? So like when I did this in Humboldt County, I had a staff member who spoke Spanish and had tons of family still living in Mexico. And so I said, hey, what's the hot dig in Mexico? And she said, oh, there's this show. If you bought these DVDs, people would love them. And it was this show about kind of a Mexico's answer to Walker, Texas Ranger. And I thought, well, okay, let's try it. So I bought a bunch of these DVDs and they flew off the shelves. We had more Spanish speakers coming to the library for these videos once the word spread that we had them, because that's what's popular there. And so I know that process works. It's just trying to tap into folks who have that knowledge. So we're going to work on that.
Perfect. Okay. No, I really appreciate this. I think this tells me a lot, and I feel really good that in 2024, seems like we've got more people reading, which is really nice. And it's always nice to see that nonfiction is bumping up there. But
Right.
that's just me.
Well, I agree.
Historian,
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
And I would also say, just side note, a little fun factoid, we ordered new library cards. I don't know if any of you noticed, but we ordered new library cards that are the same, the outline of like on our website, it's the outline of the building, and like a silhouette of the building. And then our library business cards also have that. So now our library cards have that same image. And we ordered, like maybe 4,000 last year, almost exactly the same month. And we're out. We're just about out. So we've had that many cards. That's not even internet cards. That's standard library cards for people who want to check out materials in a year. It's pretty good.
It is really good.
This doesn't reflect the Overdrive books, does it?
It does not, no. And actually, we had that information, Haley Wilson pulled that for me and had it all ready, but after I posted the agenda. So I'll have it for you guys next time. But I can tell you that it's high, with a really high wait time. I think all of us who use it know that.
High wait time, like 14 weeks.
Yeah. I just waited 6 weeks
Oh, yeah.
for the new Allison Weir. So I read that thing in like 5 days so I could send it on its way to the next person waiting desperately like me. So yeah, do you want me to provide these as well? Now, we talked last time about the circulation, or not the circulation stats, but the like attendance and the amount of traffic
That
in the
would be
library.
great.
Do
Even
you
if we
want
did
that
it
every
quarter-
3 months?
Yeah,
every
that'd be-
quarter?
yeah.
Okay.
I think
So I'll start the every quarter in, so it'll be July, August, September, so like in October, I'll provide all of this again.
Maybe
And we'll
we
have
could-
overdrive
Maybe we
stuff.
could rotate them. Like we
You
have
want to do that?
like attendance every 3 months, and then 1 month staggered, like stats, or like collection stats or something. So it's not all in a glut each month, but that
Okay.
we're touching each type of statistic.
Well, we're there
quarterly.
already. So if we were to do a quarterly thing, I would provide the stuff I did last time in October, and then this stuff in November. Yeah.
Like kind of roll them, but so that
Okay.
there's some different information each time and it
Sure.
doesn't all lump up.
Yeah, yeah, because then it just makes you cross-eyed when you've got all these different numbers coming at you.
Good idea.
Anything else that you guys would like to see? Please let me know, and we'll see what we can do to gather that data for you. It's always findable because we keep it. We're data-driven.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I have a question about, do we start the strategic plan process soon?
We do, actually. I was gonna put that on next month's agenda to talk about that. Dr. Steinman has reached out to me to see where our interest lies with discussing with him again, the possibility of moving forward with you said. So, yeah, that's all gonna be on the agenda for us to discuss how we want to proceed.
Okay, so at that time, we would talk about whether or not we wanted to hire him or,
Yeah, we'll just have to
Right.
talk about how we want to go forward from there, but it's not agendized, so we really can't talk.
Sure.
We can't fruitfully talk of it.
right,
But we'll have to talk about, okay, do we want to go out? We'll have to go out on an RFP because the cost will be, require that. And what are we looking for when we do that? We have to start that preliminary process. Do we want something that's very technically driven like that, et cetera? Or do we want, what do we want? Do we want to do it ourselves? Because plenty of libraries do. Carson City Library has done it themselves many times. So we have to think about that. So that'll be on the agenda for board business next time.
Thank you.
and I know I wasn't here last time, but the senior workforce development person, what's happening with that?
The GoEd?
Yeah.
That's literally just coming down the pike today. Like they just are getting, the state's an interesting animal, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
So I don't have all the details, but we're getting closer to go time, and I quote my GoEd contact. I literally just spoke to that person this morning about that. Things
It
have
was the
changed.
funding, right?
Yeah, so it was funding ultimately. The Board of Supervisors approved us entering into the contract, but it's been reduced because the states had to use bridge money and kind of chip away at that award from the T-Mobile settlement because of the process of having to go in front of the Board of Supervisors and then having to go and do a different work program because of once the city approved it, then it had to go back to the Board of Supervisors. And then by that time, the funding had changed because they'd had to chip away at that to continue the program. And so then they had to go and do a whole new work program to adjust the funds. So it's just been a palaver, but we're getting there. Hopefully next time I will have much more meatier information to deliver.
Thank you.
Mhm.
What, DA Niegos, when is the appropriate time to ask? Can we revisit what our public comment was about? That's not agendized, but can that be under like board member requests for information, or can we ask the director now as part of her director report?
Yes. definitely.
Okay. I'm never quite sure when we're allowed to bring up stuff.
Okay.
I know that previously, I believe the situation with the lighting was we had to be careful. We didn't point it into the apartments across the street.
Yeah.
That was an issue.
Uh-huh.
I think we discovered one of the lights was turned and they
Right.
did correct it. But it sounds like we still have maybe a shortfall in this area.
Well-
Who would we approach, or is there anything else we can do?
We can do other things. Now, one thing to remember is that a lot of folks who have expressed concern over the lighting, it doesn't get dark at the time that they're still at the library. So they may not be seeing how much that changed, the impact of that change, because it has made a pretty significant impact. Getting the lights pointing in the right direction onto our parking lot, for example, has helped. If we were to increase the lighting beyond the light poles that we have now, we would have to work that out with facilities and with Public Works in terms of cost. Facilities just kind of gave me a ballpark that it would be about $15,000 just for the pole and all of the other associated costs. But in terms of where it would go and what that would require in terms of, drilling up a concrete sidewalk or a part of the parking lot, it's pretty expensive. So that's why we chose to have them just come look at it. And they, part of the issue, of course, is always trying to get them pointed in the right direction so they're not casting off into the neighbors' apartments across the street. So my plan is to kind of just see how it goes once it starts to get dark early.
So obvious, and I hadn't even thought about it, the fact that it's
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
we're
I
not
mean,
dark
because it
during
did,
hours
the
right now.
adjustment did get
Yeah.
made right around the onset of daylight savings time beginning. So people might not be seeing that right now. And then also, actually, as it happens, just today, I spoke with facilities about moving forward with getting some added striping to our parking lot for that kind of crisscrossy sidewalk that had been suggested. Sort of like they have at Costco. You know how Costco has those concrete sidewalks, but then there's that painted one that kind of guides you to, here's where somebody might be crossing. It's really just to tell the drivers, like, hey, this is a place where people might be crossing. And so I'm going to discuss that with facilities is looking into it for me right now to see what our options are as to how to get it done and who would do it.
And how are we doing with our bathrooms? I think you had said that you guys had maybe stepped up the number of check-ins you
We check on them
did,
every
and are
hour.
changing
Yeah.
tables holding up?
So far, yeah. And yeah, we haven't heard any complaints that I know of. And typically the staff's really good about letting me know, and or the complainant is good about letting me know. But we haven't had any negative feedback about it. But we also have had to be much more diligent about that. And I'm also looking into getting some change in signage for the smoking so that we can be most clear. Right now, our signs say no smoking within 25 feet. But we consistently have to police that. And it would be helpful to have signs that just say no smoking, no vaping, so that folks don't say, well, I'm 25 feet away. I mean, that argument happens at least once a day.
What's the reason for the 25 feet? Is that a rule or
I have no idea.
it's kind of arbitrary?
It was probably NRS from years ago, but we have a designated smoking area. So NRS actually says, I don't remember the number, says something along the lines of, if you have a designated smoking area, you can prohibit smoking at the actual site. So our designated smoking area is over near the entrance to the parking lot. We have like a receptacle there, and that's where they can send and smoke without incident because they're far enough away from the doors. Also, the city just issued an updated policy about employees being having the right to be in a smoke-free workplace, and that includes exterior.
Yes.
So now we've got that added expectation and obligation to meet in terms of having a smoke-free environment. So we probably, one of my goals is to start working on updating our policies and procedures because they are extremely outdated, and I just haven't been able to. And it's been turning in my brain for a few years now about what things we might need to do. And one of the things that I expect that we'll have to be speaking about in future is how we want to proceed with having to trespass individuals from the library and how we want to proceed with that. Things are changing nationally with a change in the U.S. Supreme Court overruling the case that was on from the appellate court, the Ninth Circuit Appellate Court, how that's going to play out legally. The sheriff, I asked, and he let me know that the city they were convening to speak of it. I don't know what's come of that or anything, but then also, what do we want to do in response to some of the uptick in behaviors that we've seen that then have created an uptick in complaints?
So if we're talking about safety, and again, I think we should always think about the safety of our employees, even if you don't get all of the policies and procedures updated, I think that we should start making a priority to at least get
There?
the safety.
Yeah.
Just the ones that concern safety, get those updated.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and some of them aren't overtly about safety, but affect safety.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So this is a sticky, the trespassing and calling of law enforcement and things like that. I've been doing a lot of research to figure out what other libraries do, and it's sort of across the board as to at what point is someone legally trespassed. And so,
I would want to question, so I know might be kind of obscure, but what the city's perspective on homeless or unhoused individuals, I personally don't feel like the city is doing enough to address the need for like a day cooling, resting center. I know that at night there are facilities available, but I personally don't think that that the library staff should have to be dealing with these issues over and over again, because you talk about safety. Safety is it's real, but it's perceived. Also, maybe the and I know it's the city doesn't really want to address it either, because whatever you do is going to cost money. But do you ever talk about it with the city about
all the time.
Okay, solutions? I mean, I know Reno's got different kind of solutions, but it's a different community.
Yeah.
And
This is something that the citywide,
yeah,
all the organizations are grappling with and trying to figure out. It affects us very directly, obviously. And then also there's the balance that we have between our ethical responsibilities,
absolutely.
our statutory obligations as a public library per Nevada revised statute, and finding a way to balance that with the safety of our staff. And so that's the trickiest part.
Well, and I think also safety of children.
Correct. Yeah.
So that brings another element in. I mean, there are places where people who don't have a place to go can go, that to get a drink of water or to sit down and rest for a while. But with the library, there's it's a children's facility in many ways, and so I just
Oh yeah. Trust me, I'm not afraid to let them know that either. I am not on record. I am not above shaming and saying we have children here. You cannot sit out and smoke marijuana.
Yeah.
And as people are walking by with their children, and I have been known to say, I understand the situation that you're in. However, I don't believe that no one in your life has ever shown you the proper way to behave, and this is not it. You know that smoking marijuana in front of children, sitting out here drinking a tall boy is not okay.
yeah, regardless of whether it's
Yeah.
legal or not.
Correct. Regardless of whether it's legal, regardless of whether or not you're unhoused, that behavior doesn't need to be, that behavior doesn't need to be happening. We just had a complaint from a gentleman the other day who was upset. And this is something I'm thinking about, but the gentleman was upset because of the smell of urination on the building, which we just had it power washed like a month or two ago. And that costs about $500 if we can get the city to find time to do it for us using inmates. Otherwise, it's double the cost of that. And we just had it done not very long ago, but it's 100 degrees outside. So, heat makes that worse, way worse. And there's just not anything we can do about that because they're not doing it while we're there. Although one man did, and I had to have him trespassed, but he was doing it against a tree. But those who are doing it in the alcoves against the building, again, doesn't need to happen. There's plenty of places that could probably happen that wouldn't be against a building. Just saying, I'll leave it at that. But it's happening against the building, and it's leaving an incredible stench, and we're doing everything we can to keep up with it.
It's like, why choose the building?
I know. Yeah. We also have we've had some human feces stuff happening here lately. There's a big smudge of it back on the back building. So, yeah, I mean, there's just some animal type behavior happening. and we have to address that. And where I'm at right now in thinking about this is, at what point do we have to move forward with trespassing someone beyond just a day or asking them to leave for the day if it's every single day that we're having to ask them to leave because they simply are not going to follow the rules? We have one gentleman has to be trespassed because he straight up said, I am not going to not smoke by the door. I'm just not. It's a public building. You have to allow me here. I don't have anywhere else to go. You're not doing anything to help me. I'm going to smoke by the door. And that's, so we have to, he had to be trespassed for a week. Then he came back and screamed and hollered and cursed and called us every filthy name in the book. Then he got trespassed for another week. So then at what point, so that's where we're going, you know, that sort of internal procedure that we went over. Now we're getting to the point where there are certain folks that it's just reached a point of escalating where our staff is just like every single day having to regulate the same folks.
Right, and on the top, I mean, not that we're talking about it right now, but I think on the top of my head, if you've got somebody who's abusing staff, you know, even if it's verbally, I think that would be cause to trespass them and say,
Yeah, but the
"You
question
cannot
is,
come in."
how long are we trespassing them for? Are we permanently trespassing? Are we trespassing just for a year? These are the things that we have to work
Right,
out, right?
Right, and we should do it probably sooner than later.
Yeah, and luckily, I knew that this stuff was going on nationally in terms of what was going to happen with this case, because that now has allowed, and like I said, I don't know what's going to happen in practicality, but it has effectively, that case turned back and gave more power back to the municipalities about how they're going to handle that type of behavior with camping in public, drinking in public, you know, that kind of thing. There was it was very unclear, which is why the Supreme Court, if you read the case, that's why the Supreme Court overturned it, because they said this is very unclear for law enforcement to determine what they're going to do. So we'll see what happens.
Are there other agencies within the city that are sort of, you know, I don't want to say necessarily working on the same issue? I mean, there are, because
Yes.
there are definitely agencies who are working on trying to solve this problem.
Yeah, or
Um,
figure out
yeah.
how to,
I mean,
things to do.
Do you have any regular or occasional communication with?
Yeah,
some of
because
these?
we meet every month for a city managers meeting, and it's all the department directors. And so CCHS is working on this, the sheriff's office, all the court system. Everyone's sort of kind of still trying to figure out, you know, how are these things, what can we do about them? But we're unique because we are in a public building, and there are certain things that we have to, we can prohibit someone from being there.
Oh,
And,
sure.
you know, we have a different, so the enforcement of that prohibition is much different for us, right? But yes, there are, everyone who's in public service in this city of Carson City this is on their radar. And
Yeah, I
we're
mean,
working towards coming up with solutions.
It's like, you know, some sort of quasi-permanent restrooms that are, you know, around town, you know, that aren't, you know, at the library store. But, you know, I know that people can go into the aquatic center during the day.
Mm-hmm.
But at night, you know, there's minimal places for people to, you know, satisfy their needs or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. But so, you know, things like that the whole city, and not just the city agencies, but nonprofit agencies in the area too, that can offer, you know, it's almost like brainstorming.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is. There's, and it is happening. It's just difficult.
Good. Yeah.
And
It's a
so,
tricky situation.
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
very tricky.
I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we all do. I mean, it's not, none of us want to just, you know, kick these people out and say, oh, too bad, sorry.
Right. Well, and a full disclosure too, this is all very much forefront in my mind because we're coming down at the end of the summer, so the summer shenanigans, we're all just kind of exhausted by them, which you guys have heard me say that, right? The summer shenanigans, the winter shenanigans. So the summer shenanigans are going to start petering out here. And we're going to we're going to see an ebb in that because of the weather change. And then the winter shenanigans will begin because it'll be too cold for folks to be outside. So then we'll have to deal with a whole other set of stuff similar to what we are dealing with in the summer. But I would say this year has been particularly, people have been particularly cranky because of the heat. And we've just got a lot of folks who are new in town, right? So they're not sure where to go and how to get services and things like that. So there's just a whole lot of stuff going on that I know is happening. Why it's happening, I couldn't exactly say, but it's happening here in Carson City, just as it is in every city of this size or more. But we're going to have a little bit of a break here. I'm hoping in the fall. We typically do. Fall and spring are a lull.
Joy, I have a question. I was wondering, and this could be a funding issue, so it might not be a viable alternative, but I was wondering if some sort of a deterrent could be added to the situation for the library specifically. So for example, like hire a security guard who is in a uniform, doesn't necessarily need to be a police officer, but who's in a uniform, who's out there, just sort of circulating around. If that wouldn't provide a deterrent for some of that really bad behavior.
We've thought about that. It is pretty cost prohibitive, to be honest. But also, in other libraries, Washoe County doesn't have security. Las Vegas does. And when we spoke about this at a board meeting last, I quoted a friend of mine who's a branch manager at Vegas library, one of the downtown libraries. And she said, we have security guards, but it hasn't stopped me from being doused with urine and feces.
Oh.
So it can be a deterrent, but it can also, in a community of this size, my concern is it will actually make people feel less safe. Like the library is so unsafe, they have to have a security guard there. Why would I want to go there? If it's so unsafe, they have to have a security guard, because that happens as well. So that's very tricky.
Okay.
So right now we're trying to find that balance and I do think it has been effective, but it puts a lot of strain on our staff to have to go around and just make sure everybody's minding the rules. And but we've been very consistent. This summer has been particularly hard with people mostly wanting to just pass out on our lawn and sometimes not being responsive, but mostly just being cranky that they can't sleep on our lawn. So our staff has been, and we're short-staffed, and it's been hot, but our staff have been particularly taxed this summer. But I mean, that's a very legitimate idea.
What about something that isn't a security guard, but is one individual that's been hired to circulate with, and maybe they wear I don't want to say a red vest, but to give a sense of a consistency to to a person who's going to address some of the issues, just instead of it being, randomly a person who's there at the time, whether it's Amanda or Kelly or what.
Well, I'm not sure how much that, are you saying like a staff member be particularly assigned to doing that sort of enforcement during a day, like swapping out one person does it per day, or?
Well, no, I'm talking about maybe taking one of your library assistant jobs and making it like a quasi security guard.
Are we talking about a mall cop, Bets?
a mall? Oh, maybe
An enforcer, right? It's an enforcer.
I mean, just for consistency sake,
Yeah,
that it's the same person who's paying attention.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
how that works out.
Well, the problem
I don't
is
really
like,
know.
and I've thought about that too, and these are all really valid ideas. Um, the the problem is that however we do it, there are going to be people,
Oh, yeah.
probably the ones that are being the most abusive right now, who are going to pay attention to who's least prohibitive, who's going to be the least likely to enforce something, or hey, that person who's here that's the one who enforces the rules is too busy with Joe over there, so like, hey Bill, we can get away with doing this over here because they're dealing with Joe. So I'm not sure how it would actually stop the behavior.
I don't know if I would actually agree with that. Because we all know that we're going down the drive or going down the highway and people are speeding and there's a cop who's busy with somebody else and everybody slows down. Like the cop is going to just turn around and grab them, right? I mean, that's when you're not going to get a speeding ticket. But yet people slow down because there's a cop around. So maybe
I wish that were true, honestly, but it is the converse that is, in my experience at the library. It's phenomenal, actually. I would have think the same thing because logically that is what you would think, it would be a deterrent, but instead, so for example, one of the things that we've encountered and why we've been diligent about consistency is because if we have new staff and they don't enforce something, we will see, and perhaps that, so let's say I'm the new staff member and I'm on the computer desk upstairs by myself. And one day someone is sitting at a computer drinking a beer and I don't say anything. That community of folks the next day, we'll have 2 people sitting at the computer drinking a beer. And the day after that, we'll have 3 people. Every time I'm at the desk, we're going to see an increase in that number of people breaking that rule because the word has spread that I don't enforce it. It's
Well,
that.
I think you could still have everybody enforce it, but I think by having having that one strong presence in here, so it's like, okay, I'm gonna go sit at the computer and drink a beer, knowing she's at the desk, but at any time, this other one can come around the corner and grab that beer and grab me. Hey, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's worth a shot. I don't mean to sound like a naysayer, but I know I do.
But it's also, I mean, you're not fully staffed. You're at
Right.
60% staff. So just having more staff around, and
Will
I know
help.
they're
Yeah.
they're not all in offices at all the time, But when you walk into the library, and any of us have done this, you usually don't see more than 1 or 2 staff people. Just because, maybe it's the time I go in, but there'll be someone, maybe there's 2 people at the desk, one's talking to the other about, something. But there's no visible presence of staff people, but it's because you don't have the staff that you should have, because there might be more people just, walking around shelving, asking people if they need help, I mean, obviously you're trying to get more staff, but just, I think sometimes just having more people around can help deter some behavior.
Yeah, and I think we just have to be consistent. And once we are fully staffed, if that's not doing the trick, then we move on to that idea of having some person, and we can figure that out if we have to. It's just something that takes time, analysis, data gathering, et cetera. But in the near term, what we have to figure out is, even if, regardless of how it plays out long term with how are we going to enforce these rules, ultimately we have to come up with a solution to address the repetitive rule violations from the same people over and over again. Because that's what's really getting to be a drain.
And I just feel really bad that we have to talk about this, you know, periodically, every few months. I
Well,
mean,
there's been paupers and poor folk on the streets since the dawn of time,
That's
right?
true.
So I'm
That's
sure that
true.
every library has had to deal with this. Probably the Library of Alexandria had to deal with this. It just didn't get written down.
And I'm sure that, you know, this library in Carson City, Nevada will not solve the ultimate problem. We may come close, but, you know.
But we're
it's-
trying, and
yeah.
that's, you know, sometimes that's you got to keep trying.
I have to assume that the most obvious things we've already tried, right? Like, I feel like we must have talked to the sheriff's department about maybe just cruising by more often and looking for people sleeping on the lawn. I mean, they're probably limited in resources also.
They are, but also we have to be able to say to them that we are going to trespass those people and legally. So we've not been, I haven't been super aggressive of that because of the balance that we have to strike between our legal obligations and our ethical expectations and what the sheriff's office requires in order to really enforce it.
Right. I'm
But
just
also-
thinking, like, if they drove by more at night, just
Oh,
drove by more
at
like,
night,
you know,
yeah.
and
I
stuff like
I
that.
think
don't
they
know if-
actually have. They actually
Yeah.
have increased that because they did mention the sheriff actually mentioned to me recently that their department has noticed some folks camping in their car parked in our parking lot overnight, and he said that they have told the law enforcement that the library said, "Oh, we can park here," and I said, "Absolutely not. We did not say that."
Yeah. I mean,
We've
I'm
had
just
not-
thinking like,
And
you know,
I said, "We have." I go, "Are you talking about this certain vehicle?" And he said, "Yes." And I go, "No, we've talked with them, and we've asked them, are you camping here?" And they said, "Oh no, we're just sitting in our car during the day." And he said, "You mean people lie?" And I was like, "I know.
you know, if I
it's
was
terrible."
hanging out on the lawn and somebody came in and just
Mhm.
circled the parking lot real slow and left, I might be a little more careful. But
Yeah,
I mean, you know,
yeah.
they also, like you said, they have limited
Part of the issue
resources.
too is that they also are, resource limited. But for example, we had to call law enforcement for a gentleman who was, I would say, having some mental health issues. And they came to speak to him. Them coming to the library to speak to him was the fourth time they'd spoke to him that day at other places. So, yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's rough. And they are feeling like we feel. There's only so much you can do. So, it's hard. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
and the fact that they can't
That's
take him
per-
to get him help.
Yeah,
is
when
awful.
it's just somebody who's mad, it's a lot less heartbreaking than when it's someone who is having a heated, yelling conversation with someone we can't see, and you can tell that's what's happening. So that's why this work is not for the faint-hearted. So the law enforcement, they're doing the absolute best they can do as well. Yeah, they're not mental health professionals either, So we just try to work with them and be as good of community partner as we can, whilst meeting our own obligations. So this conversation will never go away. It will just change. Hopefully, for the better. Anyway, so anything else? Thank you, Deb, for this lovely picture and for the ride up in the Carson now.
Anything else? Okay, then let's move on to item number 6. Information only, board members' announcement and request for information. Does anybody have an announcement or a request for more information?
I just want to say on August 20th, Michael Branch, who's pretty well known in Nevada, a writer, he's a professor at UNR, he's an environmentalist, he's a humorist, he's great fun to listen to on August 20th. He's going to be speaking at the Senior Center at 12:30.
No? Okay. Moving on then to item number 7, public comments. Welcome back.
You collected some more? You collected some more comments for us?
Thank you very much. I think I will save some so that they're not necessarily on the record because of the content, but there are some solutions for some of the odor issues you're dealing with that I've heard about that are helpful, temporary, that might save you on that water use and having higher people in. So I'll mention that later because I don't want to name a product on the deal. But having worked in security in several different locations, the most active one was Ventura County in the Mission Plaza area, which was right off the river area. So the alcohol, the drugs, the prostitution, the gangs and such, always a challenge. And we are a unique species. We have such a wide range of mental capacities and concerns and such individually, and then as a community. The restroom situation is tough. When I was walking more, it wasn't as available to me to have a restroom available, and Mills Park was an example of that. Most of their facilities were closed if I was walking through and didn't have the ability to get home otherwise. So I do have a great deal of sympathy for us older guys. But the deal is that I just applaud whenever I see how well, well, sometimes I think they do better than the sheriff, but we won't want that on the record either because they're doing the best they can too. But the staff does amazingly great at dealing with the diversity we are. And I really just want to applaud them as often as possible. And they don't get combat pay, and they're not equipped with the gear that would be able to say, I'm the, they have to be very tactful. They have to be professional. And they also are caring people. So all of those ingredients has really helped. But it's not the solution, and you're right to maybe consider in the future a person that would be walking around or a security. But I would just like to say more cameras and making those available to then be used. Who's the person that's using your wall as a urinal or such? Because those things can be charged, and that would be then for the law enforcement to be able to follow up. You're in a legal spot while not making people feel like they're under a big brother type situation. They could be discreet. But I can't say enough, because I'm seeing them having to deal with the person's hard day or the person that's talking and having an argument with the person you can't see, as you mentioned, Joy. So again and again, if I have, I don't get to all your meetings, you're probably tired of me saying this, but I want the public to know that with all the things that they're concerned about, you're multiply concerned about it. And you're working on ways, and if they have considerations or suggestions, you're available to those. And I just want to encourage people, like my little suggestion later about the odor issue will, I think, be handy. And if we all sort of do this brainstorming, but we have the compassion that I see of those library employees is just amazing. And I just am so thankful because I've been there as a security officer, and it's a tough job because you're not a police officer, you're not a sheriff. You're basically just a uniformed person. So I thank them very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. We always enjoy having you here. And I see there's no more comments. So item number 8 for possible action, let's adjourn. The
that make you feel better?